I'm going to tell you something straight. Russians show everything they capture. Everything except this one. That says it all.
That's the first Challenger 2 lost in combat. Another British tank has been left behind forever near Kursk, on Russian territory. But the knocked-out Challenger 2s didn't end up on Red Square in Moscow, like the American Abrams and Bradleys, or the German Leopard 2A6. In this video, you'll find out why the Challenger 2 became the Ukrainian Army's most classified tank and ended up in a secret lab instead of downtown Moscow. Why does the Challenger 2 have a bunch of red buttons? And did the Russians manage to hack the British tank?
You won't see this kind of stuff in civilian life.
Great Britain transferred 14 Challenger 2s to Ukraine with the expectation that not a single one would become a Russian trophy. That's why all footage of Challenger 2 movements goes through censorship.
Don't film.
Rumor has it the Ukrainian side even committed to destroying the Challenger 2s if there was any risk of them falling into Russian hands. But that plan failed. All 14 Challenger 2s provided to Ukraine ended up in the ranks of the 82nd Air Assault Brigade. On one hand, that's the right call, because concentrating identical tanks in one unit makes training and logistics easier. Plus, it allows for better security and secrecy. But on the other hand, that's exactly where the problem started. Because the paratroopers take part in the most dangerous, high-risk missions. They're the ones cracking open defenses and executing breakthroughs.
It was morning, but the sun was already up. We were closing in on the border, and the tanks were covering us.
As you can see, the Challenger 2 does a pretty good job of that. But what about the drones that have become the scourge of this war for every piece of equipment?
There were hits, but the armor holds, even against shaped charges.
Ukrainian operators really praised the Challenger 2 for its high level of crew protection, thanks to the Dorchester composite armor. Unlike standard armor, British armor doesn't just soak up the hit. It actively breaks down the structure of the projectile. In some situations, the tanks withstood numerous hits. We have a lot of footage of hits, but only 2 tanks were destroyed completely. In the first case, a Challenger 2 hit a mine and was immobilized. The crew managed to bail out before a Russian Kornet ATGM missile finished off the tank. The second confirmed destruction of a Challenger 2 happened with the help of a Lancet-type drone with a cumulative warhead near Kursk. It hit the tank in the turret roof or even the commander's hatch, where the armor is significantly weaker. The secondary detonation left no chances. It was right near Kursk that the thing the British feared actually happened. A Challenger fell into Russian hands because the British tank was left on territory that Russia now controls. But this knocked-out Challenger 2 didn't become the hero of propaganda videos featuring captured Western gear. Why? Because the Russians sent it to their main tank lair, the Uralvagonzavod plant, located deep inside Russia. They tore the Challenger 2 into the smallest possible pieces to reveal what Great Britain hides from the whole world, even from its US allies, the secret of the Dorchester armor. Did the Russians actually uncover this secret? Before finding that out, subscribe to our channel so we can make more videos for you. So, Challenger 2 tanks were delivered to Ukraine in the basic modification with Dorchester Level 2 armor.
The armor here is good, yeah.
Let's add a few details. Dorchester is a deep modernization of Chobham armor. That's why the armor became even tougher. It's not just layers of metal that shatter the core of a sub-caliber round. It's also ceramics that stop the flame of the shaped charge jet, so it doesn't reach the crew. Does this mean the tank became lighter?
The Challenger 2 falls into the heavy tank category. Its weight is 64 tons. That's without additional armor. And with additional armor, the weight hits 78 tons.
In other words, there isn't any less metal here. It's just that British engineers introduced a fundamentally different armor concept. Not one material, but a combination of different ones. Dorchester armor wasn't just made up. It was shot at dozens of times with different types of ammo, at different angles and ranges, to understand the material's capabilities. Here is how Dorchester works. The first hit is taken by the outer steel plate. Then the ceramic blocks in the pack come into play. This is the main destroyer of projectile penetrators and shaped charge jets. And then elastic layers of rubber or polymers, and the rear backing plate absorbs spall and residual energy.
I want to thank the British for such a cool tank. You can't even compare it to the tanks I fought in before.
However, even Dorchester isn't a silver bullet against a swarm of drones.
In current conditions, we need additional armor and EW. We can't survive without it.
But if the secret of Dorchester is revealed, it negates the advantage of Western tanks over Russian ones. Because in lab conditions, the Russians can perform chemical analysis of every plate. They can test fire at intact fragments on the range to find weak zones, X-ray the turret, and then develop ammo guaranteed to defeat Western tanks.
These tanks were created primarily to stand up against Soviet, meaning Russian tanks.
That's exactly why the British insisted on the total destruction of the Challenger 2 if it couldn't be evacuated. The thing is, high heat changes the properties of the secret ceramic inserts. Investigating burnt wreckage is nearly impossible. The fire also disrupts the structure of the pack. Dorchester armor is a multi-layered cake made of ceramics, steel alloys, and composites. At high temperatures, the layers deform, melt, and mix together. This prevents understanding the exact sequence and geometry of the element layout. The flames also lead to changes in the structure of the materials themselves, meaning chemical analysis of burnt chunks of armor won't give answers about the material's original properties. Finally, if the tank is turned into a pile of scrap metal, proving ground tests become impossible. In other words, it's impossible to determine its vulnerable spots. Of course, it's hard to completely hide the material composition from modern spectral analysis, even after an explosion and fire. But destroying the machine denies the Russians the main thing: understanding exactly how these materials work as a complex system, the metal hardening technology, bonding with other layers, and so on. So you can't just take an armored sheet, glue a ceramic plate from the Fiesta tableware company, and a Nike sneaker sole to it, and get Dorchester. However, the Russians did learn something about the Challenger 2. But not in a lab. First of all, they felt the British tank's genius fire control system on their own skin. What are we talking about? You probably noticed a large number of red buttons that catch your eye in photos and videos of the Challenger 2's workspace. No, those aren't annihilation buttons. But let the Ukrainian tanker tell you about it.
When you see a target, you just press the red button, and the turret quickly spins in the direction of the target.
In the Challenger 2, the commander's station is perfected to the absolute. A ring of periscopes around the hatch gives a 360-degree view. Below each of the 8 periscopes sits a red target designation button. If the commander spots a target in the left side periscope, he just slams the corresponding button, and the turret instantly slews exactly to that sector. What does this give you? The gunner doesn't have to hunt for the target because by the time the turret stops spinning, the target is already dead center in his sights. All that's left is to hit the laser rangefinder button and fire. Boom.
From the shot to the moment the smoke clears and the gunner can see through the sight again, it takes less than a second.
While the gunner's attention is focused on destroying the first target, the commander is working like a scanner. As soon as he spots a second target, he hits the button, and the system locks in its coordinates. Boom! And the 25-ton turret instantly slews the other way. And what about range and accuracy?
Personally, my max range is 5,300 meters. We were working on a Russian BMP.
At long ranges, this red button concept turns the Challenger 2 into a sniper with a spotter. While others waste seconds searching for a target through a narrow scope, the Challenger runs on an algorithm that minimizes the human factor, because the winner is whoever gets their crosshairs on the target first. Thanks to the panoramic sight mounted highest on the turret, the Challenger 2 can hide behind a hill, so only the commander's optic is visible. The commander spots the enemy, hits the button. The tank surges up the crest. The gun is already pointing exactly at the target. Shot, and the tank immediately rolls back. The rifled gun is another unique feature of the Challenger 2. The rifling spins the projectile like a rifle bullet. This provides incredible tight grouping at extreme ranges.
This 120mm rifled gun is really very accurate, but very delicate. You have to do maintenance ahead of time and zero the sights.
Of course, unique capabilities have a flip side. The Ukrainians also spoke about the drawbacks of the rifled gun and the Challenger 2 tank, but in another video. You can find and watch it after finishing this one. But right now, you're going to learn about the myths surrounding the Challenger 2. So the British Challenger 2 tank is often perceived as one of the weakest or most awkward Western tanks. Why? The press talks about bad handling and low speed, The rifled gun is considered a disadvantage due to lower penetration compared to smoothbore guns. The lack of HE frag ammo limits actions against enemy infantry. Let's break it down in order. In reality, the 1,200 horsepower diesel gives the Challenger 2 enough mobility to fulfill its tactical role. It's capable of moving at 60 kilometers per hour, even on bad roads, because its suspension soaks up everything. And the reverse gear has 2 speeds and a max speed of 30 kilometers per hour. For many tanks, that kind of speed is unreachable. The Challenger 2 gun fires Hesh rounds. Upon impact, they flatten like a cow pie on the surface and then detonate, creating spall on the other side. That way, Hesh rounds are capable of taking out any enemy tanks and equipment without penetrating, and also destroying concrete bunkers where enemy infantry is hiding. So the rumors about the Challenger 2 don't reflect reality. In fact, the British tank is much more powerful and commands respect among the fighters.
Cool ride. I fell in love with it.
We love the Challenger 2 too, and its red buttons turn it into the star of the quick and the dead. But drop a comment with your take on this tank. And if you want to learn more about British weapons in the war in Ukraine, check out these playlists where you'll find the most unexpected gear. Stay safe and support Ukraine.